Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is definitely an inspiration. Travis McAshan, GlideDesign.com. I'm going to formally introduce you, Travis, in a second, but I always like to mention other episodes people should check out. And right now, as we're talking, Travis is applying for the B Corp certification, which is really intensive. I've had several people who have gone through it on the show, and it's quite an undertaking. And so I want to mention Johnny Immerman Angels. We did a podcast with him, and he runs Close Talk, which is kind of picture amazing swag for nonprofits. You know, nonprofits want to send out swag. They want more representation, more exposure, and he does that. Ron Pruitt, for a good cause, the number 4. His e-commerce fundraising software has helped nonprofits bring in millions of dollars in online donations. So check those out, and more episodes on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We do accountability, the strategy, and full execution of a podcast. And, for me, Travis, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way to do that, to profile the people and companies I most admire on this planet and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com. And even I like introducing other guests to each other. So I think Travis should meet Ron and Johnny. So of course, I'm going to give them all a shout out on this episode, and hopefully they get to meet and cultivate a real relationship. So that's what I love to do with the podcast. And without further ado, I want to introduce Travis McAshan. And he felt, like I mentioned, he founded Glide. Glide is a values-driven digital creative agency based in Austin, Texas. And Glide and Travis they've always sought out to work with startups, nonprofits, and basically people making a difference in the world. All passion, all wanting to do amazing things. So it's about, for him and the company, I think, giving great ideas and great organizations the exposure they deserve through an amazing online digital experience that's beautiful, useful, and produces, a lasting value for them. So Travis, thanks for joining me.
Wow, that was a good introduction. Thank you. You make it sound so good.
So talk about, you're a very humble person. Talk about Glide Design and what you do.
Sure. Thank you. I started the company essentially 20 years ago. So it's been 20 years that I've been doing this, almost my entire adult career. and it really was just an offshoot from always trying to do what I loved. And so at the time, I got my first computer when I was 7 years old, 1985, and it was an Amiga 500. It had, the first computer with multitasking and, 512 colors or whatever. And the point is, I've been on a computer my entire life, and I've always loved the creativity and the scalability of creativity through the digital realm. And so, I got my degree in architecture from college thinking that I wanted to be an architect for many years, but I realized that I just loved the concepts of architecture, which is the balance of left and right brain, the balance of art and science, and just the concepts of usability. I think that one of my deepest passions is to just live a useful life. And so I look at the world through the lens of a pragmatic usability. Things that really grind my gears is when a door handle or when a billboard is designed wrong, or just things that don't work well, And so I think we approach, when I started the company, I like marketing, I like the web, I like being creative, and so that's how Glide was birthed. And I just love what I did, and I worked really hard at it. And I think that just collected a group of customers and clients around me that were faithful and that referred, and then healthy things grow, right? And so here, all of these years later, the Glide flywheel of growth, really, if you look at Jeff Bezos, he kind of drew the flywheel of growth on the napkin, and that became, internet history. And but the Glide flywheel of growth has just been do great work, create raving fan clients, increase our exposure in the marketplace, level up in all the ways, right? People, abilities, clientele, and then just repeat the process. And we've been doing that ever since. And so, I think along the journey, I've realized that I've had to evolve. I'm not, for many years, I thought I was like of my own little company, the Michael Jordan, but I'm not the Michael Jordan. I'm the Phil Jackson, like I have to be the leader. And so that's been a big transition. And,
The shift of mindset for you.
yeah, the shift of mindset. And you start to realize that you can't solve all the problems. I mean, in fact, as you grow as an organization, we're on this valley between like, transitioning from like taking the company to over $1 million to over $5 million in revenue. We're still small, but is just trying to like have that next level of leadership, right? Where it's not just a bunch of people doing the work. You need to have structures around those people that support those people, administration and management and leadership. And so I think that's been my big focus. But yeah, I'm probably going all over the place. So Glide, our passion is just what you said. Digital creative agency is a mouthful. I mean, if I were to take away and strip away the pretense, we plan, design, and build custom marketing websites. And then we also optimize and support those websites. There you go. A little screen share action.
Yeah. So if you're listening to the audio, there is a video piece, and we're looking at Glide here, and that's what it says: beautiful custom websites designed in good old Austin, Texas.
Yeah, and Austin is it's a great city. I think a lot of people seek out Austin. It's technologically savvy. It's like the second Silicon Valley, but at the same time, it's also the live music capital of the world and quote unquote weird and creative. And so I think that we cultivate that. But we are a digital agency that's remote, so that means we have team members all over the place, and on multiple continents. And so I love the diversity that we have because of that, in terms of geography and ethnicity and religion and gender and all that. So yeah, what else?
I want to talk about the evolution of services, right? Because we'll get into the leap, because you were a graphic designer, you were creative director for many years before you started your own. But I love to talk about the evolution of services, what you started off with, right? So we're looking at, you web design, web development, digital marketing, and what it was like in the beginning and then compared to now.
Yeah. So many years ago, I read a book called The Discipline of Market Leaders. And they talk about this concept of, you either best product, best price, or best solution. Best product means you focus on one thing and you do it really well. Rolex, Ferrari, Best price means, you're just trying to be the lowest cost, like Walmart, or something like that. Best solution would be like Samsung or like Amazon, where they just want to they want to sell all the things, And so I really kind of ascribe to this concept of best product. So we always kind of like circled all our wagons around, we design and build the best marketing websites. And so when folks called us, I think one of the most disarming things you can say to a new lead is, we don't do everything. Like, here's all the things we don't do. And so people trust you more because you're not just trying to say yes to anything they can throw at you. And so we really doubled down on, being world-class design, world-class website design and development. And the nice thing about that is specialization makes you less replaceable. When you do everything under the sun, then people can just go find anyone else to do what you do. The more you specialize, there's a great book called The Business of Expertise. He talks about this idea of, as you become an expert, you can notice patterns that other people don't notice, because it's the signal to noise ratio that you can see the pattern in the noise better than other people, because you've done that thing so many times in such a specific way. And so and then also you just create processes, right? Like you productize your service offering around a particular specialty. And so the answer to that question is, it was primarily website design and development. And the thing is, lots of people need that, right? Lots of people need to communicate via the web. And they have a story to tell, and they want it to look nice, and they want it to like do something, there's information that needs to be provided, credibility that needs to be created, leads that need to be generated, all that jazz. But what we found over the years was it wasn't sustainable. So in about 2019, we looked at our revenue. We said, holy crap, 90% of our revenue is project driven, which means it's time bound, it's fixed cost. It means that lifetime customer value for us would just jump off a cliff after a project was over. Because we weren't selling the client anything other than like, support services.
There wasn't like a predictability either after that.
And so you look at marketing agencies like SEO and PPC and full stack digital agencies that are on these big retainers. And they're the exact opposite of us, right? They're driving 90% of the revenue from these like beefy retainers. And there's pros and cons to both approaches. But what I decided to do was like, man, we got to figure out a way to partner with our clients. And we always go back to our purpose, just say like, well, what is our purpose? How does our purpose guide us in this? How do our values guide us in this? And our purpose is to help people who help others. That's our codified purpose. It has nothing to do with work, has nothing to do with websites. And so, because it's really just an extension of my life purpose to help people. And so we said, well, how can we help people if we give them a website, high five and walk away? Like we're helping them, but we're not continuing to help them. And if you found someone that you really like, why would you only help them once? And so we looked at ourselves and we said, well, we don't want to become a full stack marketing agency that does everything under the sun. We don't want to be a PPC or SEO company, but we got to figure out a way to offer services that are ongoing. So it was like this kind of conundrum. And the solution we came to originally was to create a roadmap. And the roadmap included moving toward partnering with our clients over time. He said, well, what are we really good at? Well, we're really good at web design and development, and we're really good at strategy. What do clients need? Well, they need all of those things. They don't, and if you look at HubSpot did a survey and they said, look, like 52% of all marketers make one or less meaningful changes to their site in a year. That's crazy because your website for most most companies is that I think that they said something like 8 out of 10 marketing leaders said their website was critical to their business success as an organization. And so you're saying, okay, most people think their websites are important and most people aren't touching it for an entire year. And so, so HubSpot, just like they coined the term inbound marketing, which is just like an amalgamation of like content marketing and SEO and all those things. They created this separate idea called growth-driven design. So I had the entire agency get certified in this concept called growth-driven design. And to save you the whole story, it was overcomplicated. It was a little bit too much of a fuss. But we took this idea that was embedded in growth-driven design called continuous improvement. And we said, what if we offer clients web design and development on an ongoing basis? And you think, oh, well, that's just like website support. But no. It needs to be more proactive. It needs to be more goal-driven. It needs to have a process to it that's beyond just waiting around for the client to call us and ask us to change something. And so it really is, it's like if you took web design and development in CRO, which is conversion rate optimization, which is a very high-end service, that requires multidisciplinary skill. What if you had a service that was nascent CRO, that was like almost like web design and development and CRO had a baby, and that's continuous improvement. And here's the beautiful thing about continuous improvement for us was that you tell someone, hey, we offer this thing called continuous improvement. They're like, I don't know what it is, but I want it. Because who doesn't want continuous improvement? And so we went in 2020 to 2022.
You're like, do you want the stagnant package or do you want the continuous improvement package?
Yes. So it's like almost like, what do you call it? Like it's like baked in, it sells itself, right? And so we went from 0 clients in continuous improvement to about 12 in the first year of selling that service. And, on a retainer basis, that was a huge improvement for us. So over the course of 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, Q2 of 2022, we went from a 8-to-1 ratio of projects to services revenue to a 1-to-1 ratio of projects to services revenue, which means that half of our revenue was coming from projects now and half was coming from retained services. And that created income stability and it created long-term relationships with existing clients. Anyway, I'm going to...
Yeah, no, I want to dig into that a little bit, actually. So I know you help companies like the National Breast Cancer Foundation and you've helped WP Engine and a variety of others. Let's take National Breast Cancer Foundation. I want to find out what you did with them. But as an example, typically before you would deliver the website, like you said, high five and say bye. But now, how do you have a process in your team have a process? What are they looking at on a weekly or monthly basis on how to improve the site?
Excellent. That's a great question. Well, I think our best clients would engage us in a few important ways ongoing. So we do now offer SEO services and PPC because we just see that as the top of the funnel. I mean, when you build, it's like if you give someone a Corvette, that's great. But if they leave it in the garage, then they're really not getting any value out of the Corvette, right? So you could have the most beautiful most high converting marketing website on the planet. But if you don't have any traffic to it, any qualified traffic to it, i.e. top of funnel acquisition, then, we have given them an incomplete solution. So, in our minds, you want to continue to optimize the site, which is continuous improvement. But you also have to make sure you're helping them drive traffic. Now, as we move up market, we work with lots of companies that have pre-existing marketing relationships with other agencies doing some of those, or they have in-house resources. But to answer your question related to like some of our best clients, we're helping them not only, right, with the experience of once people get there, but also helping them, increase visibility in the marketplace to create more opportunities for people to give to them, right? So, and what's great is you mentioned this at the very beginning of the call, top of the call. You said Glide helps people with good idea, good people with great ideas receive the exposure they deserve. Well, if we just build a website, we're not really doing that. We're just giving them a nice poster, but if we're out there helping them drive traffic in the marketplace, then we're actually giving them the full solution. And so with our best clients like National Breast Cancer, that we've been working with them for many years. In fact, our VP, Brooke Michelli, was invited to join their board, which is a very big honor for her and for us. And so we are just really well connected with them. We're doing all kinds of stuff. So we do continuous improvement and SEO and PPC and website support. And so it's basically just an embedded relationship. So we did go from more that like the discipline of market leaders. It's like, okay, well, we were the best product, but now we're best solution. And best solution, another way to define that is CIC, or customer intimacy. So customer intimacy is you don't know where your company ends and the client begins, because you're so embedded and you're so symbiotic, right, to their success. And so we have transitioned the company from a best product company to a best solution company. But in still a niche way, like we so anyway, I hope
Well,
that helps.
it's interesting, Travis, because the tough part about doing web design is it really touches everything. So it's very hard, at least in the beginning, you probably naturally got pulled into these things. Like, okay, we're doing your website. We gotta, thinking of the design and the conversion. And the next question is like, okay, well, how do we get people there? Okay, well, you need the content, you need the paid traffic. So like your clients are like pulling you into this realm and it sounds like maybe you resisted. And then you're like, you kind of gave in to the clients asking you these questions and solving it, right? So
We 100% gave in. And it's funny because we had a handful of PPC clients, and I wanted to kill that business. I literally wanted to like stop doing PPC because I'm like, I don't like it. To me, it's like if you have an army and they're only loyal to you when you pay them, i.e. they're mercenaries. Like that's how I look at PPC, because the second you stop paying for PPC, you get nothing from it, right? But with SEO, if you work hard, basically authentically marketing yourself, creating great, authoritative, relevant content, that content will be found for years to come, right? Hopefully, if it's continuing to be optimized. And so, like, I just like I don't want to do PPC. But then we looked at the data, we looked at the numbers, and we said, wow, two of our clients that have been with us the longest, that have the highest lifetime customer value, we're both doing PPC. And here I was trying to kill it. And so, I just kind of like, I had to, give in, that this is important and it works. And, we hired a really talented PPC expert to come in and kind of take over that. And it's been gangbusters for us. It's still one big challenge that we're trying to solve. And I think maybe for the listeners of the podcast, anybody that's trying to like move into new business areas, offering new services and products, we're in an identity shift because we have been so like our like literal identity of who we are as a company and how we think and how we act and operate is a creative agency. We design stuff. But all of these marketing services more like a market stuff. Like it's all about like performance. And so we are like, when you look at our marketing site, our proposals, our legal structures, everything was geared around creative design and creative. And so I think that what a lot of people don't understand is that you can't just slap on a new service, even if it generates revenue. Because in the marketplace, you're not known for that, right? You don't have credibility, you don't have testimonials, you don't have clientele, you don't have customer case studies, And so you start to realize, like, it's an identity shift that is like full stack. Like it goes all the way from how people perceive you and where your trust and credibility is in the marketplace, all the way through customer satisfaction and follow up, and that service needs to permeate all of those areas, So that's the journey we're on right now.
How do you decide to build out the departments versus have a specific partner that maybe you have a really close partnership with, let's say for SEO or some other service?
That's a great question. Well, I think that, I mean, if you're doing things the right way, I think you would go back and look at your purpose and your values, right? And say, what is true to us? Because your purpose is, why do you exist? And it's something that you should be manifesting on a daily basis, every day, more than the day before. Your values are the lens that you look through and say, this is what's most important to us. And so I think if you start with your values, and if your values are clear, I've been on some podcasts, and I feel like, people, if anyone hears more than one, they're going to be like, oh my God, he's talking about values again. But like, they're so important, right? And so, for example, we have a value called build meaningful relationships. And to me, I feel like if we just grab a partner company and just outsource that entire department, then we're not really doing a service to our clients, because we're not really owning that outcome, and well, the inputs and the outputs. And like, also, like, a lot of times when you have this black box of mystery that's outsourced, you don't really have relationships with these people like you do when they're an employee or a long-term retained contractor. And so I think it was really important to me to roll out these services more thoughtfully, and make sure that they were integrated into our identity, even though it's been a herky jerky, ride. Versus we probably could have executed at a higher level at a lower cost, with a vendor partner. But it's just, and we have vendor partners. I don't want to say that we don't, like, in different ways, in development and support and stuff like that at Glide. But like, offering a whole new service just didn't feel authentic, because I've had people say, oh, well, you can start doing marketing automation through HubSpot, just like contract us and we'll do all the work for you. But that just doesn't feel authentic to me. One of our other core values is delivering faithfully. And I just feel like whenever you outsource the entire responsibility and relationship, it's a little bit difficult to deliver faithfully, I think.
I want to talk, before we hit record, we were talking about, you mentioned Uncanny Valley, and I'd love for you to talk about that.
Sure. Wow. So I'm sure, I don't know, like, the demographic of your podcast and how many people are listening that they're trying to get to above $1 million in their business, or maybe they're aiming for $5 or $10 million in their business, gross revenue for the year. And we're in that journey between $1 and $5 million. We're kind of like midway through that journey, or a little more. And what we have found, and Greg Crabtree, financial author, talks about this in his book Simple Numbers, but is that, you're going through this journey to this valley, and you're too big not to have administration and structure and systems that support the business, but you're too small to really truly be able to afford them all. So, like, a good example is like an HR person. Like, most companies with 10 to 15 employees probably can't afford a full-time HR person. It just falls on the managing director or some other person. But we decided early on, we had a project manager who was just fantastic at dealing with people. She's the most empathetic person. She does life coaching and a side business, and she had a passion for people. So we very early on took her career trajectory to people culture advocate. Recently, we promoted her to people operations manager, and she's essentially exited a billable role of project manager that would create revenue for the company to a non-billable role that supports our people. That's expensive. It's like, oh, let's pay, $50,000 to $100,000 to help our people, every year. Most companies don't always prioritize that, so, and then other roles at the company. So, we leveled up. We had project managers. You have too many project managers, you need a project manager lead. Then you have too many services and people delivering the services, and you need a director of client services. And then the organization gets to a level where you almost have mid management. You need kind of like a COO or a VP, and now all of a sudden, you have all these people in these roles that are no longer direct, basically creating billable revenue for the company. They're just there to support the people doing the billable revenue. And so we're in that journey. But it's interesting because we had our leadership meeting, and I was like, you know what? Between here and $5 million, or between here and $10 million, we're not going to have to hire another VP. We're We're not going to have to hire another director of client services. We're not going to have to hire another people operations manager. So if we can just get to the other side of this valley, we're going to get to where that profitability is where it should be. And then we can, we don't have to kind of make these hard decisions about, what to do and how to achieve our financial goals. So I hope that
It
kind of
sounded
answers
like
that
the
question.
first step in this was creating a middle management layer. And even that is taking people a little bit, and I guess I kind of put it into maybe a player coach scenario, and
Oh yeah.
then they graduate to really just a coach scenario, like a head of whatever, right? So even the middle management layer, sometimes you're still taking them out of that utilization, right? So when was maybe for the HR example or a different one, did you find, what were you metrics or things were you looking at to move them up? Or was it more like, this is painful, we need someone helping with the management piece?
You know what? That's interesting. So I never even heard the term player coach until I hired an EOS implementer. And we were going through the EOS process of if you're familiar, some
Yeah,
of
I had Gino Wickman on the podcast. Yeah.
okay, well, I wish I could meet with him. Introduce me to him. I've read all his books. He's awesome. But the concept of EOS or entrepreneurial operating system is really cool. Our implementer used that term, player coach, and I love when people say something and it's just got a ring of truth, and you like, okay, yeah, now I can describe something easily that I couldn't before. And that's what player coach did to me. Is like, oh, okay, some employees need to be a player, some employees need to be a coach, some employees need to split their time between both, you know? And I would say it was pretty early on. We didn't really have any coaches, everybody was players. In fact, if I look at our billable rates like from 3 or 4 years ago, it's like, 80+%, which is like very high. And but now we have a lot of like coaches, like coach onlys, and then we have a lot of player coaches, and now our billable rates are like much lower, and but so
If you
to answer
take
your-
one of those and you take the evolution of that person, I'm wondering what made you just make the decision to, okay, they're a player, now they're player coach, now they went from player coach to only coach.
yeah, I think it's the need, like, and it's the prioritization of need, right? Because there's a lot of companies that are dealing with burnout issues. There's a lot of companies that are dealing with high turnover. There's a lot of companies that are dealing with low employee engagement, but they're still not doing anything about it, right? They're still not investing time and resources and energy to improve it. And I think it just goes back to, your values, right? Like, here's the thing. Almost every company has values, but the values aren't values if you just made a list, like, and a lot of times when you just make a list, that's created values, but created values don't exist. You have to uncover your values. And so if you really truly value your people, then you would prioritize that. And if you prioritize that need, you would just look at that need over time and say, we need to, okay, here's how much we need to invest, or that we have the ability to invest into it now. So I'd say like pretty early on, like for this HR example, it was like she had a passion for it. One of our core values is love what you do. So one of my desires was always to look at people and never force them to be in a position that they didn't love, you know? But at the same time, we got to have people do their jobs. And so it's like I would say it's probably we literally formulated about a 2-year roadmap for this person, to exit, and she's still supporting that old player role that she was using before, occasionally, and but less and less over time. And so, I think that the more intentional you can be about anything, the more likely you're going to be to achieve it. And when you make something important, then you look at it a lot, and then you achieve it. So
I'm just showing here on the screen, Travis. So we see, if you go to glidedesign.com, you could find on the team, the company piece, you can see what we believe: building a meaningful relationship, love what you do, deliver faithfully, better every day. And just a couple of those explanations. You could check that out on the Glide Design. It's interesting, and people can check out, there's the Gino Wickman interview, and also Dan Zawacki, the Lobster Man. He started Lobstergram. He is an EOS implementer. We had him on, and he talked about some of these concepts that Travis is talking about.
so awesome.
I want to talk about, sometimes it's a hard decision. You probably think it's not, because it's a necessary decision to focus on purpose. And so I'd love to hear how you think about purpose. And when you say purpose, I know it's the world, but also internally.
Yeah. Yeah. So purpose here, I've done a lot of research about this, and it's so interchangeable. I mean, a lot of people interchange purpose with vision, with mission. And I think these can't, I mean, if you really want to get nuanced, there are differences, right? I see purpose as the best way I could describe that is why do you exist? And like there was a question. I'm reading a book called CEO Excellence. It's really good. It's by the senior partners of McKinsey, and there was a question in there that said like why should it was the question was basically like for a CEO to answer, which is like why should you exist in 10 years? Like and it's like oh, because we need to, because I got to pay my mortgage or whatever. Or like I just we sell things. So it's like, what's the meaningful reason that this company should exist, right? And so that's the purpose. The vision is the opposite of that. It's not why do you get out of bed and why does this company exist. The vision is the hopeful future. Like, what does it look like if you were to close your eyes and in vivid detail describe a future state that you have achieved? And then a mission is like in the military, it's like, hey, here's this hill. I want to go capture this hill. So mission is what do you do every day to achieve the vision? So you can kind of see the difference between those three. Purpose is why do we exist and why do we get out of bed every day? Why are we even here? The mission is what are we doing on a daily basis? And then the vision is to achieve what? Like what's the end state? And so you can use all of those. Now it's tough with Glide. It's tough with any company because, if you start throwing all these things out to your employees, they're going to get confused. I get confused, so a lot of times, we stick to our purpose because it's easy and it's memorable and people align with it, and I think from a retention perspective, that's the area where, we get the most excited because it's like when I look at a client and let's say that they are fighting to stop the use of animal testing, so they're standing up for the little guy. In this case, the little guy is animals that don't deserve to be tortured and killed. If I help that company, then I'm helping people who help others, and versus let's say another company comes along and they're a machine learning AI insurance platform and they stiff people, right, of their rightful insurance because they can figure out because big companies can use data to their advantage, right? And so like I'm looking at these two companies to work with. And let's say this machine learning AI company has 5 times the budget, you know. Well, it's like, it's a real hard choice because you got to pay your bills, but so ideally we're finding clients that align more with our purpose, and that's how you would use your purpose to make a simple decision like which client should we work with.
I know, we have a few more minutes. I don't know if you do or if you have to hop off, but
I mean, as long as people are listening.
I did have, you have big goals, right? 5%, donating 5% top line. We mentioned you're applying for the B Corp, but also another one is we are talking about a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
So talk about that because you went through a pilot on that.
Yeah. So it had been a vision for about 5 years, and we had been traversing this goal. I had just been doing it myself. Maybe about 2017, 2018, I had this idea, and it's not unique, and so I started, hey, let's just try, not having Fridays on, through the summer. Let's try not having one Friday a week for an entire quarter, so 13 weeks in a row. And different other things like, throughout the year, we tried having no meetings on Fridays and things like that. And so we had just slowly eroded our accountabilities and responsibilities on Fridays. And so we were ready to make the leap. So I think it was 2021. And I said, guys, we're going to do it. We're going to try it. We're going to pilot a 4-day work week. And everyone was like, this is crazy. How are we going to get all our work done? And we didn't know how we're going to do it. And I literally just Googled, how do you do a 4-day work week? And boom, up pops 4dayworkweek.org. And I realized there's a guy who's running an organization doing pilots around the world who wrote a book called The 4-Day Work Week. I didn't know any of this, right? And we reach out and we literally were the last candidate that they accepted for the official US pilot. And they were doing major publicized pilots in the UK and the Ireland. This was going to be, and we made the cut. And they were doing everything for free, and it was the last one that they started. Now they're like charging for all this. But so we joined this pilot. It was really cool. We were in there with Kickstarter and some other cool companies. And We had a lot of resources and help, and they had data scientists that were reviewing the metrics to kind of like release a study on this. And so like it was exciting for us. And so having that support was great. We did a 6-month pilot from April 1st of 2022 through the end of Q2, which is I guess end of September. And we looked at it. We said, okay, well, this is good enough for us. Let's just go ahead and keep going. And so there it is. Yeah.
4dayweek.com we're looking at here.
Pilot results are in. There you go. I know that's the UK version, but they probably have the pilot results for the US pilot as well, which we were part of. But like there's some anecdotal results of this that like employees, we know that everyone loves it. I mean, who wouldn't love a 4-day work week, right? So that's obvious. But some of the other results that I already knew, but I'm starting to see is like hiring. So like when you put a job out and you say this is a 4-day work week, one company was getting 10 times more applicants to their job listings in the pilot. That was a piece of evidence. And I already knew that this was going to make the job more attractive. And the nice thing is if you're still paying kind of commensurate salaries, then you essentially are like giving people, I mean, the construct for a 4-day work week is a significant amount of less work in a year, being in the office. And so, I think that from a salary perspective, you start to attract people that care more about work-life balance than they do about making money. And those are the kind of people that I want working at my company anyway. Like, I mean, I want to pay people well, don't get me wrong, but I don't want people to get the job at Glide because of the money. I want them to get the job at Glide because they agree with the purpose, they love what the company's doing, and that, yes, the pay is good, And so I think it allows you to not like have to fight so much on the salary stuff because the kinds of people that are going to be interested in that are prioritizing their life over their revenue, which is important to me because one of our core values again is love what you do. I really want to attract people that enjoy what they do more than I'm only taking this job because it pays me the most money.
Travis, first of all, thank you. I have one last question.
Hit me.
But I want to just point people to glidedesign.com to learn more about what you guys do.
Thank you.
And my last question is, again, we mentioned the National Breast Cancer Foundation. You help companies like the Austin FC soccer team, pro soccer team, Circuit of Americas. Another company you help is WP Engine. And I'd love for you to talk about, you got to meet a childhood hero, but speak. So I'd love for you to talk about what you talked about in that experience.
Oh, super short. Yeah. So I was invited to speak at the WP Engine's Digital Innovation Summit in 2019. I got to share the stage with a personal hero of mine, Emmett Smith. He was the keynote speaker. My talk was like a David and Goliath. So what they did was they took an agency part. So they have an agency partnership program, and it's symbiotic. Obviously, agencies resell hosting, and the hosting company refers us, great clients. Well, so they took Edelman. So Edelman is one of the world's largest marketing companies. They have like 6,000. They have 60 offices, 6,000 employees. They brought their EVP, executive vice president of digital, to come speak. Right. So it's me, this guy with like 10 employees, total, with the executive vice president of digital for Edelman, the 6,000 person, 60 agency company. And so, he spoke and then I spoke, and it was the one thing I want to say about that was that experience was just epic. And it was about 800 or, 1,000 people in the room. It was a pretty big room. It was definitely, I was nervous, but I remember they had a short part where we were able to speak. I shared some case studies of clients that we work with, but my favorite part was they did a panel discussion directly after that, where they brought up me and the fella from Edelman. I'm regretfully forgetting his name, but he's a good guy. And he asked us some questions, and ahead of time, the panelists are always like, kind of like, here's some questions that we might talk about. And all of my questions related to people and culture, and all of his questions related to like data and like the market. And I remember like being afraid of talking about the things that I'm most passionate about, and like which related to like, how do I cultivate a culture of gratitude in my company? And that's like one of the most important things to me. And I remember like just going in on that, like going all in on that. I said, I really love to talk about these things, and I can't tell you how many people reached out to me after that talk. Like at the conference, people coming up to me after I spoke, but like after, for weeks and weeks, people were like, messaging and tweeting, and I just want to encourage everybody out there, like, be yourself. Like you have something unique that you bring to the world. And I know this is maybe a little cheesy, but like, it's so true. Like if you try to be what people think you should be, it's going to be met with like, I don't know, tepid. It's going to be like, okay, maybe good. You prepare really well, maybe great. But if you're yourself, you're going to have a passion for it. And that's going to come through. And people deeply crave authentic passion, like of whatever it is, however quirky it is, And so I just felt really thankful that I leaned into that. And I think that it resulted in a lot of great new relationships, new opportunities. And, I think the video is out there on the web somewhere if you ever want to look at it. But, I just wanted to encourage people with that.
What was Emmett Smith like?
Amazing. So I don't know if you knew this, but Emmett Smith is one of the most goal-driven people.
They always say never meet your childhood hero. I don't know who said that, but people do.
He's super humble. He's a man of faith. He's a very kind guy. I have a picture, of me with him. I was real proud of, but he just always inspired me. I mean, he sat down and said, I wrote down, if you go look, like, just Google Emmett Smith goal setting. I mean, think about someone who was the MVP of the Super Bowl, right? It has basically every major rushing record in the history of the NFL. Essentially, he used Walter Payton in total rushing yards and all that stuff, and he set all these goals. He like wrote them down and he like whittled away at them every year, and just very impressive to look at the things that he accomplished and how intentional he was about accomplishing those things. And I'm a very goal-driven person as well. So I think that's why he inspired me so much.
Yeah. Travis, I'm the first one to thank you. Everyone check out glidedesign.com, more episodes of the podcast. And thanks, Travis. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.